Perfect.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, you are tuned in to Cageside Live. My name is Eddie Law. That is Jay Anderson. First time on, I believe, on the show. Yeah, it is the first time.
It is.
Fresh off a trip to Miami, Florida. Now, first of all, because I remember when we were talking about you going to Miami and everything, I was like, man, trying to get out of that cold. So what was it like to go from cold-ass Canada to Miami and that tropical-ass weather?
So 100% is the first time, and I know like Alex and everyone back in the day were bugging me to come on. So finally doing it. Better late than never. Best part of what you just asked, I left during unseasonably warm weather. It was basically gorgeous here, and then just went somewhere where it was even hotter, and I was cooking the whole week. But yeah, I'm back, fresh as a not too sharp looking daisy, but I've managed to survive it. Good trip, good weather, and some good fights on Saturday for sure.
You know what? It was one of those fight weeks, and we were talking about when they started forming this one in 300 that this one might be better than 300. And honestly, the fight week itself, from what we saw, obviously from the outside, was it kind of lived up to the expectations. You know, like there was a ridiculous amount of media day, guys. You know, we had 18 fighters on there. Which, by the way, Gabriel, good luck. Everyone at 300 is talking to you, so enjoy that. But which actually I thought was cool. But you know, to have that kind of event, the whole week go as smooth as it went, I was a little surprised. Were you?
I was definitely surprised, and it's funny because I actually booked this trip before a single fight had been announced. Saw the card, went, okay, you know what? Toronto to Florida, you can usually get some good deals if you book early. Got it, was locked in, and then saw the card as it started to be built and went, whoa, they're actually stacking this. And I was one of those people who liked this card better than 300. It's 1A, 1B, it's very close, but there were just a few fights on a personal level, like MVP debuting, and that's a guy that I went and covered down in Uncasville a few times where I'm like, yeah, I want to see this live. The media day, the fight week, extremely smooth, nothing fell apart. And you mentioned the turnout. I thought the turnout in London in 2022, I was over there for the first show back after the pandemic when they returned to the O2. That media day was massive. This one eclipsed it. Could not believe it. Felt like all of Ecuador came out. All the media there came out for Chito. A lot of Spanish language media. First time they'd ever done the two media day appearances. He did one in English, one in Spanish. That was very cool. 18 fighters, so the full main card, the full prelims, not the early prelims. They're doing that for 300 though. So yeah, good luck, Gabriel. But yeah, dude, everything went very, very smooth for this event. Even the new weigh-in procedure went smoothly, and I kind of had a question mark about that one.
You broke that news, man. Everybody, I think even ESPN was like crediting you and K-Side on it. That was a weird one, right? Like, because when you told me about it, my first thought was, all right, cool. The first hours just to get everyone chances to get in, and the second hour is to cut. We've seen other commissions do kind of sort of the opposite. They give you the 2 hours to weigh in, and then you might even get an additional hour. It's kind of weird how that goes. Did you think it was the right way to go? Maybe everyone else should to kind of grab the same procedure.
It went as smooth as could be, but I'm still on the fence about it only because, that extra hour for that extra pound, I think some fighters really did take advantage of it. And, do we want to make weight cutting any harder than it is? I don't want to be the guy to come out and say, hey, let's make this window even smaller. That said, I was surprised by how smoothly it went. The only guy to miss weight, CJ Vergara, he does have a history. That was his third weight miss. He came back for that second hour and weighed in exactly the same. So that's rough. It was rough to see that. And then obviously he lost the fight, so we don't know what's going to happen. ESPN ran with that story and got a hold of some sources of the UFC who apparently say this is the direction they want to go in. This is what they want to do moving forward. So that is interesting. I think what it would have been more interesting is if someone had not showed up for that first hour.
Yeah.
Because then what do we do? Do we cancel a fight because someone was late to the weigh-in when they're used to the 2 hours? I mean, there's going to be a bit of a learning curve, I think, for some of that stuff. But I was surprised how smoothly it went. Everyone was done pretty early, and then just CJ came back for that second shot in the second hour.
His face, man, when he missed weight the second time, it was like the most dejected I've ever seen anybody look. And again, multiple times he's done this. 30% is a pretty big chunk of it, and he lost the fight. He's gonna either have some choices to make, or the choices might get made for him. Who knows what's gonna happen with him? But you mentioned MVP. It was one of the debuts that I think most fans, especially ones that don't just watch just UFC, the ones that watch Bellator, PFL, all that. But a lot of people were pretty hyped about it. I was hyped about it because I was curious about what was going to happen, right? Like, I wanted to see, is Kevin Holland going to, like, what I thought he should have done is immediately try to take him down, or is he going to stand with him? He's still with him. Then by the time he tried to take him down, dude, it was not happening. What'd you think of Michael Venom Page making his debut?
So I actually picked Holland in this fight just because I thought he was going to take the smart path to victory and do a little bit of wrestling. And like you said, he chose to stand and engage with a guy who's known for standing and flashy strikes and kind of hypnotizing opponents. He's got a bit of that Anderson Silva feel to him. He does a bit of the showboating. And, it felt like Holland was getting frustrated later in that fight, especially when he started trying to showboat back a little. So I like the debut. I know a lot of people were somewhat critical. They're like, he ran a little. That is MVP's style. He's not going to stand there and let you hit him. He darts in, he darts out. Some of those spinning back elbows, those back elbows that he threw, those were pretty slick.
And they kept landing. That was the wild part. And like you were saying, the way he went in and out the whole time, and people were kind of complaining a little bit on social media, as fans do. But his style was somewhat reminiscent of like Lyoto Machida and Pop Flurry out, except he's more like, I'm coming in with a big shot, maybe try to land a second one, but if it's not there, I'm getting the hell out of there. It was actually like you said, hypnotizing is the right word, man. Holland definitely confused, maybe like a quarter way through that fight for real.
Well, it's going to be interesting. You mentioned Lyoto, both have the karate background as well. The thing that I talked to about a few guys about this week was, MVP is doing this relatively late. He is 5 years older than Holland. He's 36. And man, if he had to come across a couple of years ago, I think this might have been a better situation, but he doesn't have much time to get to the top if the title is the goal. Obviously, there's that Wonder Boy fight. Everyone wants to see it, and you beat Wonder Boy. That's kind of been a ticket to a title shot before, so who knows? Leon Edwards has no shortage of suitors, that is for sure.
Now, there's that. I mean, MVP got put his name in the hat at 170 in the UFC, and it's like it's stacked. It's almost like, what do you do at this point right now? MVP didn't finish Holland. He showed a lot, and first of all, and I know that. Yeah, I think we both watched wrestling plenty when we were younger. I'm sure a little bit here and there, but the Undertaker music hit, and I was like, "Who's coming out right now?" Like it was honestly one of the cooler. Now Michelle Pereira had a great walkout with all that, which I wish the UFC would do more of. But MVP's walkout with the Undertaker, Undertaker gimmick going, and his music starts hitting, he starts dancing. It was very reminiscent of Israel Adesanya. What do you think of his walkout?
Well, the first thing was, hey, did you ask Izzy about this? But you know
Yeah.
what? He changed it up. He changed it up. He went into
Yeah.
his own music. He did a bit of the dancing. So I was cool with it. I love the theatrical side when it comes to the walkouts and stuff. And that goes back to like the Tom Lawler doing that stuff. You know, unfortunately, Dana came out and said to us afterwards, "Nope, still not a fan. Not going to be seeing too much of it." So it is what it is. We got it twice in one night, basically, with Pereira and then MVP. So I'll take it. But again, looking forward to see where he goes. No, he didn't finish Holland. You've got Bilal Muhammad there. You've got Hamzat Chimaev, who apparently is still looking at 170 and potentially maybe a title shot. I think he needs to show that he can make the weight before anything, but there's a lot of potential there. And, if you go back to UFC 300, what Dana said there, they offered Leon Edwards 3 different fights. The opponents all turned him down. Leon said yes to all of them, and not a single one was Bilal. And one of them was an MVP. He wasn't even in the promotion, hadn't made his debut. So, yeah, you got 4 or 5 names for Leon.
And the way Dana works, man, when he says, it was 3 guys, 3 guys said no, whatever. At that point, it's almost like he's like setting it up to like bump somebody up there that isn't named Bilal Muhammad, which I believe he should be the next guy up. I think he's earned it at this point. But that's not lie, man. We can't play that. He's not the guy everyone's like dying to see in a main event in the UFC. And yeah, I mean, I don't know. Do it. We'll see what happens with that. But shout out to Capitano Fucho hanging out in the comment section. What's up, bud? If you're watching, we are live on Instagram, Twitter, or X, whatever you want to call it, YouTube, and Twitch. If you want to get on the comments, some places don't work. Head over to our X or Twitter, whatever account. and the link for the YouTube will be there, so you can hit up in the comments. Yeah, so that was a cool one. What was another fight that stuck out to you that you were like excited for when you were heading in?
Uh, to be honest, a couple that really stood out. One was a Jack Della Maddalena fight. I am a big JDM fan. He has been tearing through the welterweight division, and he tore through Gilbert Burns at the end of the day, put him away in the third round, if I recall. It's unfortunate. He actually, and I don't know how many people know this, he actually fell ill following the fight. Didn't get to speak to the media. He wasn't feeling good. He was not transported to hospital, just under the weather. So good news, bad news. It's kind of a bummer when that happens because you don't kind of get to capitalize on that performance and get some of that extra of attention. But things happen. I still think his stock goes way up after this one, and he called out Shavkat, which is a fight that not a lot of people call out.
Right. No, it's nobody calls out Shavkat Rakhmonov. I don't see a world where he doesn't get that fight. Honestly, who would you pick in that one?
Dude, I don't want to pick against Shavkat. That's the
I mean,
problem.
I don't
I'm a
either.
big
I don't
JDM
either.
fan. The dude's undefeated. I mean, he's just been a force. I love that fight and hate it at the same time, because at the end of the day, it is going to knock one of those two guys back, and they are both huge up and coming talents in the 170-pound division. And I'm not always a fan of some of the UFC's matchmaking, especially feeding the old to the young. So realistically, I can't complain too much if they make this fight, but it is going to suck that one of those guys has to lose if it does happen.
No, yeah, and they don't. I'm not a huge fan of putting two up and comers up against each other this early because you like to build. Obviously, we talk about this all the time. You like to build up stars, you like to build up fights and everything, and do the right matchmaking. But that one might just be too good to pass up on, man. But like you said, it would suck to lose one of them to lose. One fight that I was super excited for that kind of like actually delivered the way I thought it was is BSD versus Poirier. That one was wild. Now, before the fight, obviously happened in weigh-ins, I remember I think you sent one of your shots in. I looked at it and like up out over his head was like a cut. Did you guys think any of that before the fight?
No, I don't think I actually, and it's funny because I took the photo, but I don't think I actually noticed that. So good eye. I'm not gonna lie, I picked BSD in this fight, so what was me? Not that I had any money riding on it. It's just bragging rights.
Right.
But you know what? This is another fight that when this got added and it was 5 rounds, you went, okay, this is cool. This is gonna be potentially a real violent fight. Big fan of BSD. Saw him fight overseas. Getting to see him again against a guy like Poirier, and Poirier giving a guy his shot. He talked about it after about how Eddie Alvarez gave him the shot when he was coming up, and now he's kind of doing the same for BSD. Obviously, didn't go BSD's way. Poirier, I don't know, jumps the gilly like 5 times. He was making fun of himself after the fight, joking about that. That was real fun to see. And then obviously puts him away with that hook. It was just brutal finish, and just stellar to watch. And you know what? All of a sudden, Poirier is back in the mix. Dan is saying his stock went up. Everybody's talking about Poirier again, even coming off a loss to Gagey. One fight is all it takes. One performance like that.
Yeah, no, and it's funny because a couple things. One of the things that came out that I haven't verified, so don't take my word for it. I'm still working on verifying. I'm pretty sure they got put out there, but someone said that Saint Denis said that he had an infection, he was on antibiotics, whatever. So if that's positive, that's true. That'll definitely tank you, hurt your performance with on that. The other thing was, and I think it came out today, it was a video of Gaethje celebrating Poirier knocking out Benoit Saint Denis, and I was like, okay, I don't know what to make of that. Does he not like BSD, or was he is he that much buddies with Poirier? What did you think of that?
I think that might just come down to the respect those two guys have, having shared the cage twice and kind of the wars they went through. I mean, that first fight, Poirier Gaethje won. Obviously, Poirier wins that one. That was a war, and I think that went to like the 4th round. It was fight of the year, if I recall. And then the second one for the BMF title, and Gaethje lands the head kick like a baseball bat. I think they've just got a hell of a lot of mutual respect. I don't know how close they are. Obviously, they're not teammates or anything. But yeah, it might just come down to that. Maybe he just doesn't like BSD. I don't know what the story is there, but yeah. The other kind of cool thing to see in this was, I asked Poirier after the fight. He was announced all week as future Hall of Famer.
Hmm.
And there was a bit of a debate a while back about whether or not he deserved to be in there because technically he hasn't been champ, he's been interim champ, and he's got all these records. I asked him what it meant to him. It clearly meant a lot. He almost got a little emotional, and you know what? It is cool to see these guys knowing that the recognition is coming, and just having that assurance that what they are doing matters. That is cool to see.
Yeah. Speaking of Hall of Fame, and it was actually one of the like I mean, I would say it's one of the most deserved Hall of Fame, in my opinion, Hall of Fame inductions. Joanna Jędrzejczyk. It was cool because you know when the Annex about to do it, right? They do a solo shot, they go in close, maybe a little bit down, little angle there, and he starts talking about third edition to the UFC Hall of Fame inductions for 2024 or 2024, and then you just hear her voice start. And I'm just like, someone zoom in on Joanna right now, because there's no way the waterworks aren't coming. And it took him a couple minutes, but finally went on there. It clearly meant a lot to her. I don't think she got back to the media room to speak, which unfortunate, because we'd like to hear what she thinks about that and everything. But what was the feeling in the media room when they announced her as a Hall of Famer?
Well deserved. Unfortunately, they didn't bring her back, which was kind of curious because we had Frankie Edgar in Toronto. They brought him back because I was backstage for that show, and then I believe they brought Vanderlei Silva back as well after his announcement. So we were all expecting Joanna to come back, and for whatever reason, it didn't work out. It might have been timing. There was a fairly big card, right? Busy show. Would have loved to have had it, but oh well. I'm a huge Joanna fan, and this, you know what? I don't pay a lot of attention to the Hall of Fame sometimes because it's a UFC product and a promotional thing, but it's still very cool for the fighters that are in there. It's a huge, feather in the cap. I actually, when they announced her, I went, "Holy crap, is she not in there already?" Because I would have put her in there the second she retired.
Oh,
I mean,
absolutely.
what was it? 5 title defenses. She started her career 13-0, just came in undefeated, won that belt, defended it, beat Jessica Andrade, Claudia Gadelha. Those were some good fights. And then even when she lost the title, that fight with Weili Zhang alone, you could have put her in and Weili in the fight wing. I mean, Joanna's going into the modern wing, but you easily could put that fight as well. I suspect they will at some point, and she's going to be a double Hall of Famer.
100%. No, with Joanna, I'm and again going back to pro wrestling. As a kid, I always leaned towards the heels. That's what made me a fan of The Rock. But that's what made Eddie Guerrero, rest in peace, Eddie Guerrero, my favorite wrestler of all time, because he was just lie, cheat, steal, and Latino, all this stuff. And when Joanna came in, she was like, "I'm the Boogie Woman," and I thought that was, first of all, genius marketing on her part, but I thought that made her so cool that she was like, I'm Boogie Woman. I do not care. You don't have to like me. I'm here to kill you. And then she ran into, basically, Thug Rose praying in her face at, in their first fight, and that kind of ended that. I don't think she was champion ever. Yeah, no, Yana wasn't champion ever again, right? Right.
No, she fought for the flyweight belt, but that was unsuccessful.
Right there, the Valentina fight. That was cool. There was a lot of lead up to that one too. With like they had fought in Muay Thai years before that, and yeah, that was cool to see. So super happy with for her. Well deserved. There's a lot of names coming up that should be Hall of Famers, right? Obviously Dustin Poirier, Justin Gaethje. It'll be weird. I don't know. Like I'm a big watcher of, like, for example, NBA basketball, right? And a lot of those careers, the greats end up doing 10, 15, 20 years, if they're lucky, 20 years. And like, we're at a point right now where some of the biggest names in the NBA are going to be gone in the next 5 years or less, right? And you're going to have brand new superstars and all that sort of stuff. I think we've already gone through something like that in the UFC, or in MMA, but I think we're about to go through it again with Gaethje's going to be gone soon, Poirier, McGregor, if he's not gone already, he's going to be gone. Nate Diaz, all these guys. What do you think of the shift in like superstars or stars, and what do you make of like the UFC's ability to make more?
So that's an excellent question, man. First of all, I think the generations turn over a lot quicker in MMA. Your window is that much shorter. I mean, you can stretch out a career in a lot of sports 15, 20 years. That's real hard to do in fighting. Some of these careers really only go 10 years, 15 if you're lucky, 20 if you're real lucky. But even when you look at that, most of your career is probably outside of the UFC. You might have half your career coming up before you even get into the UFC. 10 years in the UFC is a huge milestone. Not a lot of people do it when you look at the total number of fighters, over 600 fighters on the roster. the UFC's ability to create stars. I mean, this was a conversation that we had actually with some fans outside of the arena in Miami.
Mm,
Um, John Morgan was there, I was there, and some fans, some VIPs were there for the VIP experience and just kind of talking to the media with us. And one of the things was even they recognize is that the UFC is the star of the UFC. Those
mhm,
initials are the star. Dana White's the face of the company. Connor eclipsed the promotion. Ronda eclipsed the promotion. Brock came in a ready-made star. GSP got huge. Anderson Silva, Jones as well, to varying extents. They all do very well on pay-per-view. They're all big names. Um, this generation, I mean, again, it comes down to you've got this almost product mill coming out of the contender series, which I love the contender series format, but at this point,
mhm,
it's almost like give everybody a contract. And, you know, a lot of these guys are not getting the push you would think are going to turn them into stars. They're just kind of throwing everything at the wall, see what sticks. So the future is going to be interesting. Um, I think some stars will emerge. I think the sport is in a pretty secure place. And obviously, there's a heck of a lot of money behind it at this point, and those TV rights are up soon. All of a sudden, you got Netflix getting into live sports, and we saw the announcement there this week. Oh boy,
oh
yep,
man.
elder abuse right there. But you know, there's going to be that much more money, that much more of a platform. Stars will emerge, whether they make themselves. Like I consider Connor to have basically made himself. He went out, amped up the personality, said some crazy stuff. Most importantly, he did what he said he was going to do, which was win and
Right.
get those belts. And at the end of the day, that's what's going to matter most.
Yeah, no, and you're absolutely right. The UFC is the star of the UFC. Like no one's bigger, and we've seen examples of guys like you said eclipsing and everything. But you got guys coming up now that are trying to make it big. I mean, they got Bo Nickel. They just threw him in there with Cody Brundage, which I think we all expect Bo Nickel to win that fight. But he's one of those up and coming stars that they're hoping makes it big. Also, Asu Amabayev had a second fight in the UFC this Saturday, and he's asking for top 10, top fives. What was the heavyweight's name?
Rubless.
Robles is like, I want top 5, top 10. Now he's 35, 36, whatever. He's up there. So he's in a hurry, just like MVP. But MVP has a chance to make, I guess, a little bit of a run while he's here. But again, 36 years old. And it's, the UFC makes these stars, man. It's crazy. Like MVP was well known to the hardcores before. Now he's going to be known to everybody. He put on a show. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens here in the next 5-10 years. Who emerges as a superstar and who creates another Hall of Fame career. Speaking of careers that ended on Saturday, though, Joanne Wood, formerly JoJo Calderwood, retired in the cage. Got the I believe a split decision win here. What did you think of her career? Having been one of those, I think for me the biggest deal with her was first she came in and she was a lot of fun, Dr. Neville and all that. But I think the part that like breaks my heart about her career is that she was right there for a title shot. And because I forget who the champion was that got injured, the fight couldn't happen. She ended up taking another fight and losing, and we never saw her even come close to it again. But what do you make of a career of JoJo's career?
So first of all, huge JoJo fan, thrilled to see her go out on top. One of the nicest people you're going to talk to in the sport. Very, very sweet. I think she had a quote at one point that said something about an opponent along the lines of, I'm going to beat her up, but I'll bake her cookies after, something like that. Or like, God, you say something
Yeah.
like that, you're amazing. I love you. So I was thrilled to see her go out on top, especially that third round where she really took it to Marina. And I like Marina as well. But hey, it's great to see Wood go out on top. Now, her career and the title picture that you're referring to, so that was 2020. She had a fight lined up with Valentina, and Valentina had to pull out. She got hurt, and the opportunity came up to take a fight with Jennifer Maia that August. And she took it. She lost. Jennifer Maia went on to the title fight, which was in November. It was only a couple of months later.
Mm-hmm.
So had she waited just a couple of months, that title shot would be there for her. She talked about it at the post-fight press conference. Somebody asked her about it. I didn't even have the heart to. I didn't want to just kind of ask that. She's celebrating. She got this win,
Yeah.
and she said, in hindsight, yeah, it was a mistake. I should have just waited. But what can you do? And what she said was, everything that has happened to her has brought her, to where she finished her career going out on a win, one of the more popular strawweights. Also, people forget the first ever women's flyweight fight in the UFC was JoJo and Valerie Letourneau. So
Mhm.
she's got her name in the history books, fought in 2 divisions, super popular. Good for her. Wish her all the best. And she's obviously married to Syndicate MMA's John Wood, and she's got a spot in the gym and a second career ahead of her.
Dude, it was funny because I won $20 on a Valerie Letourneau question, and I forget what the question was, but I knew, and they were like, and the guy was hosting. It was actually at a sports bar, and he goes, I forgot what the question. I wish I remember the question because it was so. No, everyone was like, "What the hell, Ronda?" and all this stuff, and I'm like, "No, Valerie Letourneau," and the dude looks at me, he goes, "Yeah." He goes, "How'd you know that?" And I'm like, lucky guess. And my friend next to me goes, "This motherfucker covers the sport. He knew this is cheating." So instead of getting the $100 prize, I got 20. So it is what it is.
Oh, they
Yeah,
kind
it
of
was. Yeah, my friend's a dick. Anyway, but yeah, anyway. But again, same. Just same place as you with JoJo. I was a big fan when she came in. I was excited. I was like, this girl's gonna be. Dr. Neville was to me at the time the coolest nickname. So,
yeah.
look, super happy for her. Congratulations on a well-deserved retirement, and like you said, everything that happened led her up to where she is now, and clearly in a good spot. So yeah,
Just
that
bought
was
her
pretty
first
cool.
house, actually. She said, "Hey, we just bought a house, so congrats to her."
There you go. Yeah, that's right. She was like, it's first floor, so no stairs for me. I'm like, stairs, knee problems. There, that sucks. But yeah, and then the other thing too, when she said she just wanted to be remembered as a Scottish lass and never gave up. But the coolest quote I think she gave to you guys on Saturday is you don't have to be loud to be heard. I thought that was the perfect way to end it with because that's who she is. She's not loud, but she can be heard. So it's pretty cool. So yeah, any other fights that stuck out to you from that night? Because it was a lot of like fights with like
We
something on the line.
mentioned Robles, the heavyweight who
That's
came
right.
in, and yeah, he is 35. I can't pronounce his last name. I'm not even going to try because I'm going to
Me
butcher it.
neither.
Um, he obviously has some talent. He's still very, very green. 4 fights coming in. The last 3 finish in a combined time of 19 seconds. That's 3 fights, combined time of 19 seconds. And this one, he finishes it in 18 seconds. So in 4 fights, he's had less than 40 seconds of cage time. His first
That's
fight
crazy.
went most of the round. That was the very first fight of his career. All finishes, obviously. Um, dude is violent. Dude is big. Dude has potential. He's talking about, what he told me was, I want to be fighting for the title in 4 to 5 fights. And, a lot of people say that. I was kind of asking about it in the sense of, he says he wants to be champ quick. And I'm like, well, we saw Macy Barber do that. We saw the countdown clock and the pressure she put on herself. And, there's some other factors there, but is it even worth trying to rush things and put that pressure on you? In his case, he says it's not about the time, it's not even about the age. He just thinks that's the number of fights he needs to develop to where he can compete. Man, if he actually does that, if he actually develops as quickly as he has been, he's going to be something to watch. But what I want to see is Josh Parisian, like the dude, lots of experience, but Josh Parisian is not a top 10 heavyweight in the UFC or a top 15 heavyweight in the UFC. And there are some real killers, some real heavy hitters there. We saw Curtis Blades and Yelton Almeida go later in the night, and we saw what happened in that fight. So, going to be interesting. It's a thin division. It always needs new bodies. It's good to see one with some promise, and we'll cautiously keep an eye on him.
Yeah, let's talk about that fight. Curtis Blades comes back, and I think we all. I mean, I picked Almeida. I think most people picked Almeida to win that fight, and then he just wrecks the night for Almeida, who came in very, I think at media day they were telling him like, yo, he compared you to Damian Maya. He compared himself to I forgot who, Henry Cejudo or somebody, but Almeida was like, what? Like he's making faces, almost like he was laughing at him. For Curtis Blades to I guess take out a very very hyped, I guess, up and comer in Almeida. I mean, he's back in it to me. What do you think?
Absolutely back in it. And the thing here is, Jelton went out, came into this fight obviously undefeated in the UFC on this crazy win streak, on a tear in heavyweight, had wins over Derek Lewis. That fight wasn't great. It was what it was. But then Jay Rosenstrike, who just won like a week ago himself, Jelton comes in with this huge head of steam, and then in the first round sets a heavyweight takedown record against a guy known for
Mhm.
his wrestling. And that was a big subject of conversation going in was, is this going to be a case where the wrestling cancels out and you wind up with kind of a sloppy brawl on the feet? And it didn't. Jelton went out and pretty much imposed his will that first round, had the takedowns. And you have to imagine Curtis Blades being like, what the hell's going on here, man?
Mhm.
I'm the wrestler, right? So that second round, out of nowhere, he changes it up. He starts dropping those hammer fists, and all of a sudden you're like, whoa, well, okay, this is a very different fight. I do think Curtis is back in it. I don't know where Curtis goes from here. I asked him about it after the fight. I said, because he called for Tom Aspinall. I said, if Tom doesn't work out, if that fight doesn't happen, because maybe he just chooses to wait for the winner of Jones Stipe. I mean, theoretically, Tom Aspinall is next in line at this point.
Right.
What do you do? And he said, well, I don't know. Nothing else makes sense. And he said, I didn't ask him about Cyril Gane, but he said, I feel like you guys are pushing me towards Gane. He said, I won't fight Cyril Gane. That bus, he missed that bus. I asked for him before. He said no. So now Curtis is saying no to him preemptively. I don't know, because when I look back at it now, I go, yeah, Cyril Gane would be the fight to make. That's the guy you haven't fought. So it's going to be interesting for Curtis if they pair him up with someone else, but he's fought everybody else ahead of him, or they're tied up.
So that's life in the top 5 in any division. Everyone's tied up, and you just gotta hope for some luck going your way.
Yep.
Real quick, before we talk about the main event, Macy Barber gets the win, and she calls for the rematch and all that. And I gotta tell you that whole fight, man, I don't normally pull for fighters. Like I tell people all the time, I'm already emotionally invested in my teams, like Arizona Cardinals, Phoenix Suns. When those guys lose in the playoffs, I'm literally a mess for like a day or two, just like upset the whole time, pissed off, whatever. And so I don't like invest in the fighters like I used to, right? When Kane retired, Nick Diaz don't fight no more, Nate left or whatever. I was like, cool, I'm done. I'm not gonna be upset when anyone loses anymore. I'm good. But I gotta tell you, I was upset as hell when Caitlin Sermonara, formerly Chukagian, lost that fight, man. Like I was pulling so hard for her after you asked her about being out of those two, those injuries, which she called them injuries, but unfortunately were miscarriages. Going back to media day, because I think we talked about this a little bit. You did not expect that answer at all. What was your mind going through, I guess, as she was answering that question?
So that question was a follow up on the interview Gabriel did with
Mm-hmm.
her at UFCX. And he said, you've been out for a bit. What's going on? And she goes, I got some nagging injuries. I'm healing up. And, fighters say that stuff all the time. So I'm going to the media day. I'm like, you know what? I'll just ask her how that's going, see how she's doing. Everything's good
Mm-hmm.
going into the fight. And then, she reveals it's not injuries. It was fertility treatment and then 2 miscarriages. And having asked that question, she'd never mentioned it before. There's nothing. I Googled around. I couldn't find any info on what the injuries were or anything. Obviously, that didn't come up. And I'm sitting there like, man, I wish the earth would just swallow me right now. Just open up and swallow me, because I opened the floodgates. She's emotional. I'm like,
Yeah.
oh God, like, yeah. So I was in the same position. Now I'm rooting for her, and I normally don't root for
Mm-hmm.
fighters. When you cover the sport, you kind of check your
Right.
fandom at the door. Excuse me. So yeah, this is the one kind of exception where like I hope she has a good night. Unfortunately, it didn't go her way. Very brave, very courageous to open up about that. And she even said like the number of women who go through that, not just women, because if you're seeing someone and you go through a miscarriage, there's a dad too. That's
Mm-hmm.
affecting him. So um, it was very courageous of her. I'm glad she did open up about it in that sense. I hope it's cathartic for her. I know she took the fight to kind of distract from all that. So
Mm-hmm.
again, when it doesn't go your way, you're like, oh man. But best of luck to her in the future. Hopefully everything works out. I'm sure we'll see her back. I don't think she's done. So, is what it is beyond that.
Yeah, no, that really sucked. I remember when because I started making the connection when you let me know, you're like, hey, Caitlin opened up about this, and I'm gonna clip it, whatever. But it's those kind of subjects that are just like they go beyond fighting. You get way past it. As soon as you told me about that, I actually went back and watched the interview Gabriel did at UCX, and yeah, as you can tell, she's we don't like to talk about women's weights or physical appearances, but she looks a little bigger, a little more filled out. And I remember back then I was like, oh man, those injuries are definitely like stopping her from moving. And to find out it was that, for those that haven't gone through IVF, having, my wife and I went through it with our youngest, it's incredibly difficult. When she says multiple injections a day, she is not kidding. It is work, and it is not, it's harder than any fight camp you could ever do. So, for her to go through all that and still have 2 miscarriages and all that, and then take a fight just to get away from that, man, like you could just imagine the kind of mental, anguish and emotional anguish she was in, physical anguish, honestly, that she was in. So, best of luck to Caitlin moving forward. Hoping for the best in her personal life, in her professional life, and all that. And like I said, I was rooting for her too, man. It was and like you said, we do check our fandom at the door every single time because keep it professional and everything. So again, best of luck to Caitlin and her partner, and yeah, we'll see what happens with her. Main event, dude. Ecuador showed up for the fight. Unfortunately, it didn't go Ecuador's way. Sean O'Malley doesn't get the finish, but puts a beating on Marlon Vera. Starting with Marlon first, because I had to laugh a little bit when Rogan was asking him, telling him, "Oh, you're a tough guy. He just couldn't bring you down." My mind went, so you're giving him props on getting his ass kicked, but not getting knocked out? Like, come on, man. Like, give me something else. What did you think of Chito Vera during fight week with Ecuador in the house and Latin America in the house, but also on fight night?
So fight week was Cheeto's star turn. I really, really started seeing him as a bona fide star. Had he won, that place would have been electric, and it would have been huge, huge moving forward. I mean, they could have done the third fight at that point. I don't think it's going to happen now, but they could have done a third fight. There could have been all kinds of options. And, anytime a country gets behind a fighter, the way Ireland got behind Connor early on, or Canada got behind GSP, that's always huge because the UFC can kind of capitalize on that momentum. Seeing the turnout for him, seeing the fan turnout, Dana's out there talking about the gate being the biggest non-Connor gate, and Sean O'Malley is going to get a lot of credit for that. Cheeto definitely deserves his share of that. He brought a lot of fans into that building. The Ecuadorian population, the Spanish-speaking population, period, turned out en masse. Tons of Cheeto fans, Cheeto masks, Ecuadorian flags. It was awesome to see it. And then the fight happens, and you're like, man, I wish you had a better game plan. What happened to Cheeto saying he's going to go out and just whack the leg a bunch and see if he can take Sean O'Malley off his game, maybe get in his head a little, because how the first fight ended, and kind of none of it really came to pass, and he felt like a bit of a punching bag for 5 rounds.
No, definitely. And it's funny you say about the Spanish-speaking community coming out. All my uncles and stuff, but they're all boxing fans, but they heard about Chito Vera and they were actually texting me like, "Hey, what time's Chito's fight? What time's Chito's fight?" I'm not even kidding. I'm in my podcast studio right now, and it's not big at all. It's a tiny room, and I had like 3 of my uncles stop by just for that fight. They left right away. They showed up for that fight, and they were the whole time they're like, saying a bunch of bad words in Spanish that I'm not going to repeat, but it was just. And we're Mexican. We're not Ecuadorian. We're Mexican. And I was just like, yo, y'all really care about this? He goes, hey, man, Latin America, let's go. So it was cool to see. But again, I during the fight, I was just like, where is the game plan here? It almost looked like he didn't have one. And he ended up looking a little confused, and Sean O'Malley took advantage. And Sean, switching gears over to Sean looked like he was just on autopilot. I mean, it was I wouldn't call it a master class, but it was pretty damn close.
It was. I think it's been called a masterclass a few times.
Yeah.
It was definitely clinical. It was pinpoint. There was precision. There was accuracy. I mean, you can't really take too much away from Sean with that performance. There weren't a lot of flaws. He pieced them up for 5 rounds. Was it 2 50-44s? Or at least one. No, there's one and then 2 50-45s.
Yeah.
Either way, I mean, just one-sided fight. Looked great. He's just still going to get the criticism for kind of handpicking Cheeto. There's a question that probably should have been Merab. Yeah, probably should have, and it should be Merab next. Of course, Sean goes out and calls out Ilia Topuria, so
yeah.
I don't know. People are going to have something to say about that. I don't think that fight happens at the end of the day. Dana didn't sound too high on it in the post fight. I think Ilia needs to go out and defend the belt at least once. You're going to have a guy with one title defense fighting a guy with no title defenses. I mean, I know Connor went up right away. Connor's Connor. Say what you will about him. He is a massive draw, and he's the biggest draw the sport's ever had. I don't see it happening here. It's not like when Volk went up and Volk had pretty much beaten everyone there was to beat, other than Ilia, obviously. So, yeah, we're going to see what happens moving forward, but I think Merab is still going to be the guy. That is the guy that I want to see. Merab is a machine. I think he's a stylistic nightmare for Sean O'Malley, but
yeah, and I gotta give it to Sean. He wasn't backing up for anybody. He wasn't he wasn't downplaying any of it. He was like, all these guys are tough, man. Like these are all tough fights. Like Cheeto's a tough fight, Rob's a tough fight, Toporia's a tough fight. So you got to give it to Sean for not being like, yeah, I'll kill him, I'll knock him out, whatever. Like kind of Connor used to do. But it was cool. So do you to wrap up UFC 299 before we talk about a couple things, we got a few minutes left. Do you see this as like Sean O'Malley's star, like superstardom, breakout fight? Because we were talking about before the card even happened, when they were building it, they're like, man, they're building 299 up. Do they think Sean O'Malley doesn't sell? Do they think, I mean, like, they didn't sell pay-per-views, not a superstar? Do you think this was his coming out party?
I think it's another step along the journey, and I think he's got the potential. As long as he keeps winning, then yeah. I don't think it's that they think that Sean doesn't sell. I mean, he's pulled good numbers before, and we know that. I think realistically, they want to see how far they can take him and how high they can boost him up. So let's put a big card underneath him and just see what we can do to make him that much bigger. Like I said, Cheeto deserves some credit for that gate. I think Cheeto's going to deserve some credit for the viewership, but Sean definitely has continued to ascend in terms of his star. There's going to be a next level. I think whatever fight is next might actually be the star turn for Sean O'Malley, the one where he really breaks through. If he can beat Marab, that's huge, because that guy's wrestling and cardio are not going to stop for 5 rounds. Anybody who ragdolls Henry Cejudo while having a goddamn conversation with Mark Zuckerberg in the process, right?
That's so funny.
If you can knock him out, or you can do what you did to Cheeto. Al, if you even just kind of sneak by of a split decision, I'll give it to you, because Marab is no joke, and I've covered him for a long time. If it's Ilya is no joke. Ilya's tough. Ilya's going to wrestle with you. He's going to grapple you, and he can knock you out. And Sean O'Malley's not a huge bantamweight. This is not a dude who is outgrowing the division. So if he goes up, he is giving up a fair bit in size.
Yeah, no, it definitely. And man, I don't know. I'm reconsidering now after hearing what you said. You're right. I think it is a step in the journey. I think he's close. He'll get there soon. But he probably needs a couple like good finishes here coming up. If he knocks Marab out somehow, that's it, right? But yeah, we'll see what happens here. All right, a couple things outside of UFC 2. Anything else you want to touch on before we move on to something else?
You know what? Overall,
Yeah,
great crowd. I want to say, outside of the Q&A, that Q&A was goddamn embarrassing.
Oh my god, dude!
Come on, Miami fans, UFC fans, whatever. You were great during the card itself. You were great during the presser. The Q&A, guys going up to Armand and flipping him the bird and telling him off and saying Charles is going to kill you. Guys, these fighters are giving up their time to be there to talk to you. Do better than that, man. Ask them legit questions. They don't have to be great questions. Hell, ask them what their favorite color is for all I care, but don't flip them the bird.
And then with the one dude asking, and again, I don't speak, I forgot what language Darwin speaks, but I don't speak that language. But there's been translation of a certain question going about how many sticks would you throw towards Kayla Harrison? Basically, would you get with Kayla Harrison? And he was like, a couple. But that was just like, it reminded me of the question that they asked Patty about
Molly
Meatball, about Meatball. I was just like, come on, guys, this is embarrassing. Like, I always want those guys to get put on camera. Their boys are gonna be like, yeah, you asked the question, yeah. They're gonna be all hyped up about it. But I'm like, let's embarrass you a little bit. We should be able to see you and be like, oh, that's what you. Okay, cool. That's you. That's what you do. So, all right. But yeah, absolutely great fight week. You did an amazing job, dude. As always, it's usually like super easy when you go as well. I had to do all the editing and stuff like that, so I was kind of losing my mind over here. But plenty of coffee was good. Moving on to another massive fight that happened, I think on Friday. Unfortunately for the Team MMA, Francis Ngannou gets knocked the hell out. It wasn't just like a TKO. It wasn't a count out. He got put down into what's being called one of the most, like, I guess, savage knockouts in boxing heavyweight history. What did you make of the fight? I mean, it didn't last very long. I'm sure you remember all of it.
The fight didn't last very long. The card lasted forever. I think that it was about 2 months. A 2-month long event.
Seriously, it was.
It started during the official weigh-ins, right? So we did the official weigh-ins, checked into a room for my Friday night and Saturday night, because I switched locations. Went to the Q&A, went to the ceremonial weigh-ins, went to dinner came back to my room, and that event was still ongoing, and it had just the finish had just happened, and I caught the replay right away while they were still in the ring. I couldn't believe that was like a 10-hour event. Like, what is going on? Um, Not a great look for MMA if
Yeah.
you read a lot into that, but I really don't. This is Francis going over to a different sport. He hasn't had a long time. He had a good showing against Tyson Fury. I think he won the Fury fight. It was a split decision. Um, but I think there is some credence to the fact that Tyson overlooked him, and historically, Tyson Fury has kind of fought down to lesser
Mm,
competition. And some athletes are like that. Some teams are like that in team sports. They always seem to play down the lesser teams. Um, Anthony Joshua took this seriously. Definitely went in with a mission, made a statement. It was a violent knockout. I don't think Francis is necessarily done in boxing, but I hope he's taken a whole hell of a lot of time off after this. I
oh
hope he
yeah.
gets back and does that Hanan Ferreira fight, who is no joke, by the way, and that's a big dude and that's a scary dude. And if he is going to go back to boxing, I want to see it like 2 years from now when he's put some more time into the training and
Yeah.
just learning more of that craft. There's no need to just rush back. And I think the motivation might be there to come and bounce back from that loss,
Mm.
but I hope he does take the slow road.
I do think I do as well. Like, cause he stood there, he's his hands up, his guard up, and everything. He's like waiting for something to come. And the first knockdown, AJ just threw a straight right. He didn't set it up or nothing. He just boom right down the middle and knocked him down. And I thought, man, that doesn't happen very much anymore. Not even heavyweight, not in any weight. Usually, any weight, you got to set things up. Like Canelo hits like a truck. He still has to set every single punch up. So it was weird. But yeah, I think the fact that Tyson Fury got embarrassed that again they're fighting. I thought Nagano wanted that one as well. I thought AJ saw that, he was like, yeah, you're not doing that to me. No, that little Andy Reeves did that to me. You ain't doing that to me. So we're gonna put it, take it serious. So yeah, I mean, now we got Hannah Ferreira, and then and Francis Ngannou and PFL. Whenever, who knows when that's gonna happen? But I'm telling you right now, nobody in MMA world was really happy about him losing like that, or losing at all, except for two people: Dana White, which I'm sure we make jokes about that. Don Davis got to be a little bit happy because Francis before the fight said, "We'll see what happens. Whatever happens in this fight is what I'm going to do in the future." So him losing gets him back to the PFL.
It does, and it's a tough one though for Don Davis because now you've got a guy who's coming off this brutal knockout loss, and you've still got to market him as a killer. I think the
Mm,
bottom line is reminding the MMA fan base that look, these are two different sports. This isn't like, I don't know, switching from mini golf maybe it is switching like mini golf to going out on a putting green. I don't know, actually. I don't know what the comparison is, but they are two very distinct sports. And keep in mind, we never see boxers go the other way, except on the women's side. The women's side, Clarissa Shields and Holly Holm and even Heather Hardy and Amanda Serrano, they have put their money where their mouth is and come over. We don't see the men do it very often. Would love to see how that goes, but I think we'll see Francis towards the end of the year. I don't think it's going to be this summer because of the knockout he just took. I think he needs recovery time before he starts a camp. So I think, if you take 3 months to kind of recover and go light, and then you do a 3-month camp, well, now you're already in the fall. So maybe you line it up with the PFL finals, but that's already going to have 6 title fights on it, and God knows it's going to go long. Um,
yeah,
so I think end of the year, I kind of hope that's the turnaround. It's going to suck for Hanan Ferreira, but at the same time, we got to remember Francis Ngannou secured a $2 million payday for his next opponent in the PFL. You're definitely waiting for that if you're Hanan Ferreira. He's not getting that money any other way.
100%. That's what I thought when Hannah Ferreira was like, like celebrating. Everyone's like, "Oh, it's because he won." I'm like, "No, it's because he just realized he's got a $2 million payday." You kidding me? Like that's money right there. All right, to wrap it up here, we'll talk about the AARP fight of the year. What in the hell? How are we at this place where Jake Paul's going to actually box Mike Tyson? That makes no sense. On top of that, someone's going out there with some weird ass rule set that is like, I tried to verify it. I couldn't. I don't know anybody else that verified it. I think it's BS. But just off the announcement alone, because I think I wrote it up and you were like, I can't believe I just read that. Now it's like, I can't believe I just wrote that. Like, that was nuts. What did you think? What do you think of this whole, it's circus really, but what do you think of it?
So the entire Jake Paul boxing
Hmm.
expedition has been a circus, to be honest. I mean,
Yeah.
We saw what happened with Tommy Fury when he goes up against a legit boxer, and even Tommy Fury. If you look at Tommy Fury's records, some of the guys he beat were like 20 and 100, crazy records like that. Like these are Tommy Fury was not going out and beating killers. Jake Paul went out and lost to him. No knock on Tommy Fury. He's still very young in his career, but let's be honest about it. These other guys Jake Paul are beating are either retired elderly MMA fighters or boxers that really kind of have never been a big deal. Now he's going to go after the biggest name possible, and the bottom line is money. And now you've got it on Netflix. It's going to air. It's not a pay-per-view. So this is free. If you got Netflix, your monthly subscription fee is covering this. Now maybe they jack up the rates, the day after the fight or the day before, but Netflix wants to make a splash. Tyson's the biggest name in boxing history, and Jake Paul is going to get in the younger generation. And I guess Netflix thinks, well, let's draw some eyeballs. I don't love this fight. I don't think the people behind it are necessarily. Let's put it this way: the poster comes out, and the poster is a photoshopped picture of a younger Mike Tyson, not a prime Mike Tyson, but like Tyson in his 40s, but they've taken the newer tattoo he's got on his chest and photoshopped it on so it doesn't look like Mike Tyson is a 58-year-old man, which he will be at the time of the fight. 30-year age difference between them. Look, some of my favorite fighters were older guys. George Foreman when he was in his 40s and still winning titles. I love that about heavyweight. The power's still there. Mike Tyson when he went and fought a couple of years ago against Roy Jones Jr., and he looked good. I thought he won that fight. They ruled it a draw because it went the distance, so there's never any winner. But realistically, if you were watching, Tyson won that fight. Good for him in that case, but I don't want to see him come back and get knocked out by Jake Paul. I hope beyond hope that he knocks Jake Paul out just to put an end to this silliness, but that's a pretty slim hope, I think.
Yeah, no, it's gonna be. I don't see. It's like you. I don't see any. I don't know, dude. This is weird. I'm done with this. I'm sick of Jake. Look, I give Jake Paul props, but I'm sick of the game. The circus is annoying.
Let me tell you, if Jake Paul finally comes over and fights in the PFL, I will be interested in Jake Paul because the PFL is not going to go out and find an elderly guy from another sport for Jake Paul to wail on. He's going to fight someone who's got some MMA training who's closer to his own age. So that will get me interested in Jake Paul. I'm going to watch this because I'm going to have to, and it's kind of our job. So, we're going to tune in.
Yeah.
Do I want this to happen? No. Does it need to happen? No. Should we ever do this again? Absolutely not. I hope Mike comes out of it okay. At 58, you don't want to see someone taking a serious knockout. The best case scenario is that this is an ugly, slow fight, and they just both come out of it unscathed, and that's the upside of this. So it's not much of a selling point.
We'll see how it goes, man. It's kind of wild. All right, folks.
Weird point to end on. So let me throw out Miami. Solid card. Gotta say, the fans definitely turned out, and I think there's a lot of positives to take away from that card and where some of these guys are going next. Hopefully, O'Malley Merab next. Hopefully, a big fight for Dustin Poirier. And MVP, can't wait to see what he does next. And JDM, I know they're all main card guys, and there was a lot of good stuff on the earlier cards, but those four in particular, cannot wait to see what comes next. And Peter Yan getting back in the win column.
That was wild. Peter Yan winning that fight was like I think that's gonna end up being bigger than we think it is. Obviously with future fights coming up. All right, this weekend, UFC Fight Night, Tuivasa versus Tybura. The card that Saudi Arabia was like, hey, we don't want the shit, send it back. Now from I believe the UFC Apex, that's Tai Tuivasa marching Tybura in the main event. Brian Battle, Ange Lusa in the co-main, and somehow Ovince St. Preux still fighting. I don't know how that works, but whatever. And then after that, the next weekend, Amanda Ribas and Rosamund Yunus from the UFC Apex, and then we get the New Jersey card, the Atlanta card with Aaron Blanchfield and Manon Fiorot, who Macy Barber called boring, which is kind of funny. And then Vittoria and the UFC 300. So plenty of cards. All fight nights, and probably most of them are Apex cards up until leading up to the monster UFC 300. Very quickly, I don't want to jinx it. I don't, but that's a long time between now and 300. Do you think we get this entire card there, like healthy?
The safe money is always on a no to that question. Yeah. However, 299 held together. And 300 is kind of it's bragging rights. It's just being on that card. That is a feather in your cap. It's a bit of bragging rights, and it might keep some people with maybe some nagging injuries, whether they should or they shouldn't stay on the card, to actually stay on it. So I think we might see it hold together. I hope we do. I like the card. I was still on the 299 side for a couple of reasons. I love Max Holloway. Max Holloway is a fantastic dude. If you've ever spoken to him, he's great. If you've ever interviewed him, he's great. Even caught him in a press scrum like I have. Justin Gaethje, one of my favorite fighters, the most violent dude in this sport. Justin Gaethje is absolutely earned his highlight nickname. I don't love them in that fight with each other. It worries me because we saw Max go up against Dustin Poirier and take a bit of a beating, and I think that could happen again. And Max is starting to really, I mean, the dude gets hit a lot. He's been in there more than anyone at featherweight, pretty much. So this is a tough one for me, but I'm gonna watch the hell out of it because I know it's gonna be a good fight. And then the main event, they were between a rock and a hard place. Let's be honest. And Alex has become a big star. This was another talking point amongst the media this week. Whatever you think of the main event for 300, Alex Pereira is a huge star at this point, and he's really starting to come across. His personality, his sense of humor. He's a guy who doesn't speak English, who has fans all over the world because just very simple things. He's super violent. He does cool stuff like kicking a soccer ball and shooting an arrow through it. And then he takes a photo of himself on a roller coaster looking super serious because that's just his sense of humor. Whereas someone else pointed me, they did this thing where he showed up late to training and they were filming it, and Glover's there kind of like scolding him, like, "Hey, what are you doing? You're late to training." And there's a row of dudes behind Alex carrying all the different titles that he's won over the years in the gym. And then Glover's like, "Yeah, okay, you get this one." I think that stuff has turned Alex into a bigger star than he would have been, and obviously the Adesanya fight. So, you know what? They could have done worse, and we saw what happened with UFC 200. When you ask, is this one going to stay together? Well, God, how many fights did we lose at UFC 200 that Anderson Silva winds up coming in on like 24 hours or 48 hours notice to fight Daniel Cormier? I mean, that was just a wild event too. So who knows what's going to happen? Hope it does. Maybe we get one more fight. I don't know. I wanted to ask Ian about that. We got kind of short on Saturday on that front. They announced Moicano and Jalen Turner. Dana had said there was going to be one more fight. Well, there's your one more. I do feel like there's room for at least one more fight. I think they got 13 announced now. Definitely room for 14 fights on that card, but we'll see.
Yeah. I'm sure Gabriel's like home going, "Hey, relax. And this is a big name. Don't do that to me."
Yeah, there's me, one tired dude. Good luck again, Gabriel.
Oh man, that dude! I'll tell you right now, Gabriel is he's a hardworking dude. I'll tell you that. All right, folks.
Absolutely is.
100%. All right, CageSidePress.com for all your MMA news, all your combat sports news. At this point, we'll be talking about Tyson Paul, I'm sure. But yeah, man. At CageSideJ on Twitter, at Elon32 for myself. Appreciate you guys joining us. Maybe we'll get Jay back at some point. Like it took a minute, but we got him.
It won't be this long a wait this time.
All right. Appreciate everyone that tuned in. We had like over 40 people watching consecutively. Appreciate every single one of you guys. And we will catch you guys on the next one. For myself, Jay, and the entire team, we love you guys. Have a good afternoon. Enjoy the rest of your week. I'll be back in a few minutes here with Fred Kirby on our Not Safe for Work show. So if you like cussing, a lot of stuff like that, stick around. And we will see you guys next time. See ya.